Hi, I'm Landon Sadazan, and this is my book talk for Mr. Hill, and it is a fiction book talk. For my book, I'm going to talk about The Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss. Yes, I know it's Raggedy Books from the library. The book follows a genre of the adventure, science fiction, fantasy, that kind of area, because, for example, in the book, it follows this, it has this idea that kind of goes on that is actually used in their world. It's called sympathy, where basically I took these two pieces of paper, I tore them out of my notebook next to me, and because by using the idea of sympathy, I believe these two papers are made of the same thing, same material, made from the same tree, probably even. But because I believe that these two papers are pretty much the same thing, if I pick one up and throw it up in the air, this one will fly out of my hand. They're pretty much the same thing. So if I were to take like two quarters, I believe they're the same thing, same material. Slide one across the table, the other one move across the table with it. It's as simple as that. So then, throughout the book, there are many different characters and people who are actually introduced, but there are several that stand out. Some of them are, for instance, with the protagonist side. Excuse me, I have hiccups. The protagonist side, you have Quoth, who's the main character, who this whole book is actually focused around him. And then there's Chronicler, who's writing down Quoth's story as he's living through flashbacks, and then you have Bast, who's Quoth's apprentice, and is actually helping him run his run his hotel business area. And then you have the list of antagonists who, for example, there's the Chandran, which are a evil group that wherever they go, they spread terror, death, famine. They bring all kinds of plague with them. But they're a really evil group that end up attacking Quote's family. Then there's also Ambrose. Ambrose is that classic rich boy that nobody messes with, but when Quote and him meet each other, they immediately start clashing heads, and they're at each other's throats throughout the whole book. The book itself, it's set in a frame story kind of view, but it's centered around Quoth actually at his hotel, restaurant, bed, breakfast, whatever you want to call it, called the Hog's Head Inn, and he's there with Bass and the Chronicler. And throughout the day, whenever there's no business around, Quoth actually tells Chronicler via frame story about what his life was like, because Chronicler has come seeking Quoth after hearing rumors about Quoth being Quoth the Bloodless, Quoth the Great, Quoth the Arcanist. He hears all these rumors and wants to come talk to Quoth himself directly to settle all these rumors and be able to say, this is what happened, I heard it directly from him. The book, it kind of does start out a little slow, but it does pick up, and when it picks up, the rising action to me, from reading the book, is actually when Quoth is living on his own in the city of Tarbine. While he's there, he hears about a storyteller who's in town named Skirpy. He goes to talk to Skirpy, and he asks him about the Chandran. Well, he tells him the story of the Creation War and Lanray. Lanray was basically, during the Creation War, he was basically mankind's best warrior, best, pretty much their secret weapon for fighting the demons that were invading this world. So once the demons were all defeated and Lanray went and talked to one of his friends, he realized, what's the point of it all? They're all going to come back. There's always going to be sin. There's always going to be death. What's the point of it all? And because of this root idea becomes rooted in Lanray's head, and Lanray later forms the group called the Chandran with 8 other people, and they go around the world pretty much just putting people out of their misery in their idea, when really they're just causing death, plague, famine, as simple as that. The reason I feel this is a reacting action is not just because it kind of talks about the Chandran, who they are, but it sparks Quote's interest to follow his dream of going to the university, where they have the biggest list of archives in the world, where he's able to go there and learn more about Chandran and why they attacked his family. Like I mentioned before, it's Quoth versus the Chandran, so it's man versus man. Since he's trying to figure out why the Chandran attacked his family, he wants to know why they did it, what they did it for, what was their gain out of it. And then another example is, again, with Quoth and Ambrose constantly butting heads. It's a man versus man there, too, since it's literally two people butting heads all the time. For me, reading this, I actually talked to my girlfriend a little bit about this, and she's read the book too, but we agreed that the climax of this actually was towards the end of the book when Quoth is sitting in a courtyard with his friend Wilhelm and Simmons. While they're sitting in their courtyard, Quoth has his instrument, a lute. It's set open with the case propped open so the strings can actually warm up in the sun. It's a musician thing, I guess. But Ambrose comes over and takes the lute from him and plays a nasty song he wrote about him to try and get a little gain, gain out of him. Well, when he doesn't get what he wants in return, he decides, oh, okay, I guess I'm done. So he throws the loot back at Quoth after Quoth threatens him. Well, what ends up happening is Quoth tries to reach for it but misses, and it falls to the ground and breaks. This causes Quoth to experience a mixture of rage, sadness, extreme feeling of loss, and the fact this was his own very own loot. So as he falls to his knees and holds the broken loot in his hands, he looks up and sees Umbros kind of turn and look at him with a half amused smirk on his face, and he opens his mouth to yell, to curse, to scream at him, to do something, but instead another word comes out of him. This word is basically the name of the wind. He summons the wind, and what happens is the courtyard is filled with wind, and it literally has everybody push forward a few steps, except for Umbros, who literally pinwheels through the air as if punched by the hand of God. In verbatim of the words, punched by the hand of God. I feel this is the climax of the book, because it's the whole point that Quoth went to the university in the beginning to actually learn the name of the wind, not just seeking Chandran, but when he had a teacher in the beginning, he actually talks about learning the name of the wind, because he wants to know it. Then the falling action and the resolution are kind of combined in a way in which at the university, like the quote said, there are 3 levels you can get. There's Elir, Relar, and Elth, something like that. And the falling action and the resolution kind of mix, because Quoth, because he manages to summon the name of the wind, one of the masters there at the university actually sponsors him, and he's promoted to the rank of Relar within his first year of being there at the university, which is incredible because it takes most people 5 to 6 years to actually even get to that point of being considered for promotion. He does it within a year, which is why I feel this is the resolution and falling action of the book, since it doesn't just kind of end there and say like, okay, well, I guess he's done, called the name of the wind, book's over, great job. It keeps you going. It wants you to know, okay, well, does he go for Eoth? Does he learn more names of the wind? Does he learn the name of fire? Does he learn the name of water? Does he learn the name of the air besides just the wind? What more does he learn? And that's why I'm glad Patrick Rothfuss is actually writing this book in a trilogy, and book 2 is already out. But yeah, when it comes to the theme, I actually feel, after thinking about it for a while, I felt that the theme best would be we adapt to our surroundings. So if you want to think about it like this, in the book, Quoth originally lived with his family, and he lived a happy, simple life of being a kid, running around doing his own thing, occasionally doing chores for mom and dad, but just basically being a kid. Later, though, when he's living on his own in the city of Trevian, he actually is forced to survive day to day. He has to beg, he has to scrounge, he has to dig through garbage to find food, he has to do anything and everything to live, day by day, which is why I feel this theme of the book is we adapt to our surroundings, because no matter where in the book he is, he's always adapting and always making the best of the situation of wherever he's at. And